what VCCP advocates and will always advocate is brand first. That has only enhanced my belief in that the way to really stand out in customer engagement. And it goes with that caveat of you've got to get your data and your tech right. If it's not right, then obviously I can see why the focus is there. But the only differentiator once you've done that is creativity. And VCP advocates for that in everything they do. So it's not just from a customer engagement perspective, it's from a social perspective, all the way through to things like employee engagement. Everything should align back to what the master brand stands for.
Welcome to the CX Equation, a podcast by TAP CXM.
We share actionable insights and real-world case studies to equip you with the tools you need to drive loyalty, engagement, and sustainable growth.
We're your hosts, Chantelle Casey
and Mark Clydesdale. On today's episode of the CX Equation, we're delighted to welcome Matt Broekhuizen, Head of Customer Engagement at VCCP. With nearly 20 years of experience leading loyalty and CRM strategy, including founding his own award-winning agency, Table 19, Matt has worked with some of the world's most recognisable brands, from Sainsbury's and BlackRock to LEGO and Canon. At VCCP, he now helps challenger brands design loyalty programs and customer experiences that are not just data-driven, but truly creative and human. And so hello, Matt, and thank you for joining our podcast.
Hi, Mark. Good to be here.
Hi, Matt. I don't believe we've met before, so lovely to meet you for the first time. Just to get us going there, so as Mark alluded to there, you founded your own independent agency, Table 19, and now in the last few years, you've moved to leading customer engagement at one of the world's largest challenger networks, which is, of course, VCCP. What has that transition taught you about how creativity scales in the world of customer experience?
Moving to an agency like VCCP, who is kind of, as you say, world renowned for its creative capability, I think it's not something I didn't believe beforehand, but it's something that's kind of enhanced my belief in that brand should be central to everything, not just broadcast activity. And I think in the CX space, often that gets forgotten, especially in recent times over, tech and data being a lot of the focuses for a lot of organizations. I think what VCCP advocates and will always advocate is brand first. And I think that has only enhanced my belief in that the way to really stand out in customer engagement. And it goes with that caveat of you've got to get your data and your tech right. If it's not right, then obviously I can see why the focus is there. But the only differentiator really, once you've done that, is creativity. And VCP advocates for that in everything they do. So it's not just from a customer engagement perspective, it's from a social perspective, all the way through to things like employee engagement. Everything should align back to what the master brand stands for.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And we've worked together on a few clients now. My sense of the way the market is going, data and technology, as you say, is becoming increasingly important. And particularly maybe the decision makers that you and I deal with are getting even more focused on data and tech. So how do you ensure that kind of creativity remains a big part of the puzzle and important to those decision makers when talking about loyalty and CRM?
It's not always easy, especially, as you say, the focus is on tech data. And a lot of what has been sold when big tech is sold to organizations is that it's going to create efficiencies. So often what they're looking for first is a cost efficiency, not necessarily an investment in brand in more customer-centric channels. So it isn't always easy to make sure that we do. But what I guess there is the white space that VCCP and kind of my team are trying to get to is that, because I don't think anyone's really cracked this yet, a lot of people have talked about it, is to find that triangle working effectively of tech, data and creative thinking working together in harmony. So that means you do need to work with slightly differently minded creatives that understand data and the power of data, which aren't always easy to find. But I think we've built a team now that recognise that you can be creative with data. So creative isn't always about pictures and words. It's, you can be creative with data. You can be creative with technology. And that's kind of what we're advocating. If we can get that triangle right, I think we are in a unique space, and I don't think a lot of people are trying to get there, but I don't think anyone's fully got there yet. And obviously, we've got the organisations that we're working with have got to catch up. So there are organisations that have invested heavily in data and tech 10 years ago, and they're starting to realise the benefit. It's taken that long. I don't think any of us can believe it actually has taken that long. But they are starting to realise the benefit, and then they're realising actually the only differentiator is kind of the creativity behind it and the alignment back to brand.
Yeah, I guess historically data teams and technology and the creative teams have worked in silos, so it's hard to start to see them join the dots.
Different personalities as well, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
I can imagine that comes into play. So just on that, you've worked with some very well-known brands with the likes of LEGO and Sainsbury's and Sky. Can you share any examples of where you've seen that creativity unlocking unexpected value in the customer engagement side of things?
In pockets, I can. So a lot of what we advocate is about programs. So we would always talk about customer programs, less about campaigns. And one thing working in a big, well-known advertising agency is they think still very much in campaigns. So we're doing a lot of work trying to get them to think more programmatically and more in programs. So where we've been probably most successful was when we worked with Sainsbury's. So Sainsbury's have obviously realised a lot of value in their data, but we built a number of programs for them, which was solely focused on basket size, so increasing basket size amongst the customer base. We ran programs like something called the Grapefruit and Veg Challenge, which was a month-long program that we did for them, which was encouraging people to eat healthier, which was aligning back to their brand at the time, which was about healthy eating and choosing a healthier basket, but challenging and using gamified programs to get people to change what's going in their basket, but also increase the value of it. And then people were rewarded with things like badges and stamps and nectar points, obviously. But we also encouraged that behaviour by serving recipes or giving people ideas of what they could do. If they'd never bought an aubergine in the past, for example, we would encourage them to buy one, they would get a badge for it, and then we'd give them a recipe to do it. So programs like that have really, and we saw about 500,000 customers when we first did it, signed up. I think it's more now. They still run it every May. But the basket size and the increment, I don't think I'd be shared the incremental amount of money, but it was significant to the fact that I think they're in their 5th year of running it. So things like that. And we also do a Collect for Christmas program for them as well. So Christmas at Sainsbury's starts in September. And what we wanted them to do was to get customers to start thinking about their Christmas shop and saving nectar points over the final quarter so that they could redeem them on their final shop at Christmas, so they could reward themselves with things, especially when, with the price sensitive customers, it was a really rewarding way of getting customers signed up. And then I guess more recently, the work we did with LEGO, they launched a new partnership with F1 recently, and we launched a whole program that spanned the calendar of the F1 season, trying to get customers engaged. They would tell us what their favourite team was, and then we'd feed them with content during the period, but also ideas and what they could do for Lego sets that aligned obviously to their favourite teams and those sorts of things. And again, there are brand attributes that can be apportioned back to what we've delivered, but there's also a commercial one as well. So things like that, when you're thinking slightly differently, and importantly, the Lego one, a big investment in a franchise like F1, helping them realise the value of it in creative programs, is kind of what we specialise in doing.
I don't know if you can see the Lego Formula One car in the corner there, but I've got a couple, and so I'm a massive Formula One fan.
I've got Lego behind me as well, not Formula One, but
it's a great brand, isn't it? Great brand. I remember the Miami Grand Prix this year. The drivers driving around on their formation lap to the grid in full size Formula One cars made of Lego. It was quite extraordinary.
I think that's a good thing, Mark, on that there was lots of other things going on. So we tied what we were doing for CX into in real life experiences as well, which was, again, increasingly we're starting to do more of that stuff to tie up the kind of the brand ecosystem much better.
Absolutely. I actually loved hearing your Sainsbury's stories as well, because I used to work for Morrison's, and you talked about the Christmas collecting the nectar points. I was at Morrison's where we were getting people to kind of collect receipts to then swap them for a £25 off voucher for their Christmas shop, and things like that worked really well. For me, what was so important about getting it right was starting with some form of customer insight. So there's a bunch of price sensitive customers that need money off their Christmas shop. One of Morrison's successful ones, it was they'd lose market share in the summer because just Tesco's and Asda's are easier places to shop. Morrison's doesn't have the same kind of offering. And so that then gets you into thinking of ideas that can help a family around the shop at the summer. And so you've got to have that kind of insight to root it in.
Yeah, and locking in that Christmas, or you'll know working on Morrison's, the golden quarter, as they call it, that's where they make all their money. So locking that spend in over that period is a massive part of their commercial reality.
Yeah, as a consumer, I think I can tell how that works. I'm a sucker for those kind of things.
That's the kind of customer we like, Chantelle.
Yeah, there you go. That's a customer. Just on that then, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about so a lot of our clients we see at the moment, there's so much like technology out there where they can contact customers across lots of different touch points where they want to. But I think a lot of the time it creates these fragmented experiences because they don't understand how to use creative storytelling, like you were just saying, to bring coherence and that emotional impact. Can you tell us a little bit more about how they can do that?
I think it comes back to that kind of, when email first, I'm old enough to remember when email wasn't actually around, but when we used to send direct mail out an awful lot, and there was a creative process to that. I think because email is so easy to send, and it's so quick and easy to send, and anyone can do it. And there's been a big focus on in-housing, again with that efficiency play, that the creative element has been stripped out of a lot of that in-house work. Customer strategy and a joined up channel plan is massively important. So understanding kind of what channel is the right channel to use for what task. But in keeping it aligned to a story, I would always advocate on brand. Is it talking as the brand should be talking? And often you'll find, you see it in your own inboxes, you'll get loads of things coming through, and it could be from anybody because they're just trying to flog you stuff, or it's, no consideration is given to actually what is the brand. We're working on a project for the moment for a well-known chocolate bar manufacturer, and they have such a brilliant positioning in terms of generosity. So you probably know who I'm talking about. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say it, but they have a brilliant proposition. And they, when we show their TV ads in pitches and things like that, the people we're showing it to actually cry. They weep because it's so emotional in terms of how it's delivered. But then when we show them the customer work and the customer experience, CRM, loyalty type work, it's really cold. We don't currently do this, so that I should probably caveat that. We're hopefully up to stuff.
It's not your fault.
That's a really good example of how that disconnectedness between, and often, direct channels can be seen as sales channels and not marketing channels. And I think that it gets lost in that kind of that hungriness for, I've got to send more emails because that'll get me more sales. And there needs to be given more consideration to kind of what it's saying about the brand, because it's not the people who are responding you need to worry about, it's the people that you're sending it to and who are not responding or not engaging. And you have to consider that as much as you are the people who are.
Yeah, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
And it kind of sort of brings us back to what we were saying earlier about the different personalities in a business. How can you get people in maybe more technical roles who are responsible for targeting customers and building emails and doing operations, invested in the brand and the creativity part of it?
We talk about this a lot, don't we, Mark? And I think you're probably more qualified to talk about it than I am, but I think more increasingly we get asked that question by clients in terms of how should we organize ourselves so that we are customer centric and so that we are delivering on a brand promise that has been set from the organization. I really like your idea of squads and bringing expertise into squads. So you're working less in a kind of a horizontal way, more in a vertical way. I'd really advocate that. I don't think many clients are doing it yet, if I'm honest. So what I guess an agency's role and our roles become increasingly is to tie those three things together. So you get the left and the right brain people in the room, and then we try and be the kind of the facilitator of the conversation, because, and I have the same conversation with our tech team that we're working with, is that they think totally differently. But if from the outset you involve everyone from the beginning, at least they're understanding why we're asking to make sure that there is brand alignment in everything that we're doing.
Humans, we're an interesting bunch, aren't we? I think there's psychology out there that says we all think we're right more often than we are. And so when teams are siloed and you know your role and what you're doing, the moment someone comes in with their different thinking, you're naturally going to maybe not agree with it first time round. It's only by putting people together and getting them to work together towards a common goal do they actually start to appreciate how clever we all are and how we all bring something to the table that means the overall result is the best result it can be.
That NASA analogy of asking the cleaner what his job is, and he's talking about it being, he's helping put a man on the moon.
For those listening, when we talk about squads, we're talking about bringing together cross-functional teams. So rather than work in traditional departments where I might have creatives, I might have CRM strategists, I might have digital people, I might have in-store marketers, all working within their specialisms, we actually pull those specialisms into a cross-functional team and give them an aligned purpose. And so that could be to sell a particular group of products or build experiences for a particular group of customers or meet a specific challenge. But you're bringing those skills together and giving them an aligned objective. And so they're going to work with the people that are bringing all of the skills as opposed to working in their kind of specialisms.
I guess that helps out on the flip side of it as well, not just making sure that not just making sure that the technical teams understand the value that the creative teams bring, but helping the creatives understand, a lot more around analytics, tech, operations, how things are actually built and executed, adds to that idea as well. Works both ways.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we send our creatives to things like, the Salesforce conferences or the Adobe, just so that they can understand where the technology is headed, what's the next big thing, so they have a broad understanding. They're not obviously experts, they do think differently, but it does help them when we talk to them about certain ways we want to engage.
Looking sort of into the future, how do you see creativity in CX evolving with new technologies like AI and new personalization technology? Is there a risk of that kind of automation wiping out the authenticity that you've worked so hard on?
From a operational perspective or a creative perspective, because I think from, a VCCP perspective, that I guess what we're trying to prove is that AI is going to enhance creativity, not stifle it. So that is and I think we've started to prove that now. So just some of the things that we've been building, like, I don't know if you saw Daisy, the O2 granny who was intercepting scammers on calls. She's an AI that we invented that O2 brought to kind of field and try and keep scammers on calls for as long as possible, so that they didn't have the time to call anybody else. Which, from a creative perspective and a business problem perspective or a human problem, it was it's only enhanced what we could do, because you build it, you switch it on, and then it's fielding all these phone calls, which means that O2 customers aren't getting bothered with. So from a creative perspective, I think we're only at the beginning, and I think it's going to just get better and better. So there's lots of literally we don't do a pitch now that hasn't got a Gen AI element to it. In terms of the kind of the decisioning and helping you build programs, I don't think we're quite. And again, Mark, you may know more than me on this. I don't think we're quite there yet. And I think smaller organizations are using platforms like Salesforce to automate certain types of communications and certain types of prompts and things that customers get. For a big brand to use them, those sorts of models will need training. They'll need to understand what the brand is. And we started to do some of that work, but I don't think most of our clients, it may be just be us, are still trying to get the tech and the data aligned. So it's making sure that the data is feeding into the tech, the CDP is working, and then we are usually operating one, maybe two channels, so that priority is more on the channel mix than it is on then how do we move towards automated decision and all of other things that even modeling data, we're only really in its infancy. And I know there are organizations out there that are far more advanced than we are, but we are starting to look at how we are using AI to model data and things like that.
It's an interesting debate, depending on who you are and the context that you're debating it. I can't see AI replacing the work that creative people in businesses do. I can just see it making them able to do some things that they couldn't do before. So maybe, you're a holiday company and you've got a video of someone in a water park, and you find it's now easier to kind of remake that video of them on a beach, instead using the same kind of people. You can then get into the debate about whether we're costing actors jobs and other people, things like that. But I think from where we're sitting on the CRM side, we are going to enable people to probably do more stuff more quickly, but there always needs to be the human there that's kind of coming up with what is it that we want to do in the first place, to then kind of prompt the AI to help them to do it.
Yeah, that's definitely the point of view of VCCP, and there is definitely a speed benefit that we're seeing now, especially if you're working on pictures and things, that you can storyboard, you can create live concepts much quicker, that sort of thing. I think clients are still a little bit wary about using Gen AI in actual live campaigns.
As they should be.
Yeah.
I think another nice use case is for international businesses and its ability to maybe translate a video now, using the same voice and even make it look like the person's lips are moving in the right way for the new language. So I can immediately make a consistent message available to multiple regions.
Yeah, we have done that actually many times for our international clients, where you might be doing an educational video and you only shoot it once, and then the AI does the rest in terms of lip syncing it to the language that, and automatically updating it into the language that the audience needs. So that sort of thing is definitely happening already.
So a bit of a curveball question for you now, Matt. You and I talk to clients about loyalty in CRM a lot of the time. Where does loyalty end and CRM begin?
So I think CRM can engender loyalty. CRM done well, and across multiple channels, highly personalized, I think can engender loyalty without you actually having a physical loyalty program. And we've proved that many, many times. I think the reason we added loyalty to our name is because clients are increasingly asking about loyalty programs as a scheme. And usually that entails that there's some form of currency involved in building it. So I would say CRM can be a loyalty mechanic. I think the reason we call ourselves CRM and loyalty is so that when clients see us, they're thinking about a loyalty program, they're going, these guys know how to do loyalty. And I don't think that organizations always put the two together. I also think the CRM should be used to make sure customers stay engaged with whatever loyalty program they sign up to. So often what you'll find is that organization will set up a loyalty program, usually at great expense. It's not fully integrated into an app, or it's easy to redeem, or it's not a regular purchase. You need the CRM to make sure that the engagement continues, and you can monitor behaviors, like we used to do with Nectar, I guess. And if you were continuing spending, you were visiting Sainsbury's regularly, we knew that you were engaged and you do it, but we'd have flags in that data. If you didn't come to Sainsbury's for 2 weeks and you're a weekly shopper, we would use CRM to get you back into the store and back engaged into the loyalty program. So I don't think you need a loyalty program to ensure that loyalty happens within your customer base, but I can see the attraction to a client, and for many organizations it works to have a form of currency to drive that loyalty activity.
Very interesting. Thank you. I think we're kind of getting to the end of our time. You're actually our first guest, Matt. And what we're planning on doing is asking all of our guests similar questions as we get to the end of our podcasts. So our first question to you to kind of close out the session is, when you think about your own experiences, not in work, are there any particular brands or particular brand experiences that have truly impressed you?
I ask this question when I'm interviewing people always, and then I think I should probably have an answer of mine. I think, so from a personal perspective, the one that gets me every time, and it probably tells you more about me than anything else, that is the Peloton program. So I was silly enough to invest in a Peloton bike during lockdown. And I think it does a really good job to make sure that I keep exercising. So and keeping me engaged in lots of different programs and different exercises, but also there's a bit that appeals to the competitive nature that I have in that the leaderboards and the social element to it are another driving factor to keep me pedaling on the bike.
So what is the program? I've never been on a Peloton.
Basically, the program keeps you. So it'll reward you for exercising first off, and then it will tell you off for not exercising, or find ways to try and get you back into exercising. And then there's milestones that you'll achieve that it'll give you badges and rewards for. So it's highly gamified. And then there's leaderboards. So you can sign up with all your friends, and you can do classes at different times, and you can try and beat the other people that you know. Sometimes you're racing against people in India and America, and people that you know around the world, or you could do it with strangers. So I used to use Strava quite a lot. So Strava is obviously another one that gets called quite a lot, and I was heavily engaged in Strava and doing all the things that they do that Peloton do on a static bike. But I fell off during lockdown and I broke 2 ribs, so that stopped my outdoor cycling. So I continued it with Peloton indoors, and their app is their way that I motivate myself to keep going.
I think that's a really good example of sort of how brand reputation really affects how consumers interact with a brand. I don't know if you saw a few years ago, there was an actor, Chris Noth, who was endorsing Peloton, and he was in an advert for them, and he got accused of sexual assault, and suddenly Peloton stocks dropped, but he was just in an advert for it. Wow. And they dropped dramatically. So I think that's a really good, there's a direct correlation between, what you're putting out there as a brand, obviously, and then the customer's experience and the sort of emotional impact of that as well, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously I like the programs that we've designed as well, Mark.
Yes, of course. That's why I said outside of work. Yeah.
This is another bit of a personal one, but has there been anyone that's been a really big professional influence on your career, and what have you learned from them?
I guess I learned from a very young age that, having drive, determination, energy is way more important than any kind of certificate with of education or anything like that. And I see it more now than ever that if people have that, if you've got the drive, I will always look for drive, energy, determination over someone who's come out of university with a first or something like that, just because what we do isn't rocket science. If you've got the determination to make what you're doing, or making it and showing that you're doing a good job and you're willing to put in the work and the effort and I think that produces, and I'm an account handler in an agency, that produces better account handlers, but I think it also it produces better tech people, better data people, better creatives as well, if I'm honest. So I think my dad probably taught me that. And both my brothers somehow have got it as well. So I think that's probably the biggest influence I've had on kind of my career. In terms of work people, I learned my trade in an agency called Black Cat years ago, who were a massively successful business. And I learned a lot from the leaders from that organisation. And a lot of what I learned from there was what helped me set up the agency I did set up 16, 17 years ago.
I love what you said about the drive and the determination. We've got a few people in our business that, are where they are today without having a university degree, saying how clever they are. And actually, haven't they said that the requirement to have a degree to get a professional job is actually quite a big barrier to diversity, equity and inclusion? Because when you look at it, people from more deprived areas are less likely to go to university and get a degree. And so by putting that barrier on entry to the business, you're immediately excluding a whole group of people. And why do we need it? Because you might find some extremely bright, driven, determined people that did not go to university who could be a real asset to your business. So I think that's a great answer. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, the right mindset can take you a lot further.
It's been great having you on, and looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Enjoyed
chat.
it. Cheers.
Take care.
So how did you find our chat with Matt, Chantelle?
I thought it was really good. I think one of the things that stood out to me was how he spoke about putting the brand at the centre of the whole customer experience teams, anyone that's involved in the customer experience. So from technology to data to the creative teams, the brand should be at the heart of all of that. And I'm a technologist myself, maybe day to day with clients, we're not thinking about what the brand is and how that impacts how we build things or what technology capabilities that we need to unlock. So I thought that was a really interesting point that he said there. How about you?
Yeah. And then the fact, because we spend so long helping clients get their data right and plug their tech in so they can react to a data trigger and send the right messages to the right channels at the right times. I love that when he said once everyone's got that bit right, the only way to then differentiate between each other is the brand and the creativity that we bring to those experiences. So it shows how important creativity is even in our more technical world.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's going to make your brands, your customer experiences stand out from the rest.
And nice to have an AI debate that wasn't completely negative.
Yeah, exactly. Using AI to unlock more creativity or more time for creativity. I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
Great. Well, that's it from us. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Thanks for listening. The CX Equation is brought to you by TapCXM. To find out more about what we do and how we can help you, visit tapcxm.com.
And then make sure to search for the CX Equation in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you usually find your podcasts. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
On behalf of the team here at TapCXM, thank you for listening.